Hello, welcome to the Extinctionati podcast. This is episode 165, and I'm very, very happy to welcome as a guest with us today Oz from Beauty and the Boomer. Formerly, he used to be on my show a long, long time ago. So, welcome, Oz. I guess Going South is going to be joining us in just a little while. He's doing engineering stuff in the background, making sure everything's working. So, Oz, welcome and thank you for coming. I'm so happy you made it.
Well,
Uh,
thanks for having me on, Chris. It's always a pleasure. And hi, GS. How are you this afternoon?
he's not going to be on for a minute. Just so
I'm
you know, he'll
struggling
be.
with the stream tech.
He's
So
a
hang
stream
on.
tech, but welcome to my nightmare.
It's always Dream Tech. I don't see it going live on your channel yet. I'm looking for it. Of course, I could refresh, but um, I don't want to get. Let's just wait for a couple minutes. Oh, now I see it live. I see it live now. That's good.
Yeah, seems to be
All right.
working.
Yeah. Yes, it's working. So welcome, Oz. Thank you for coming. Um, so this is kind of informal discussion. So let's just start with what's on your mind. There's a lot going on in the world right now as far as collapse. Um, collapse of society, collapse of civilization, collapse of the ice, collapse of climate, biosphere, all of that. That's all included. So please, what is on your mind this week, Oz?
On my mind, that's kind of a big topic across the sphere of conversation when it comes to collapse and global devastation is microplastics. I don't know if you guys are aware, but in any time in history, we've never had so much microplastic pollution in our in our atmosphere, our water, our air, everything. And I even was reading something the other day that we've built up microplastics in our brain. So that's
Mm-hmm.
quite concerning. And what microplastics are, for those that don't know, there are tiny plastic particles, smaller than 5 millimeters. And I would venture to say much smaller than that. But even on a microscopic level, they can build up in your body and cause havoc. They are present in freshwater and marine ecosystems. Their concentrations in
Soil.
the soil and fresh water are estimated to be 4 to 23 times higher than marine environments. And I would say, Chris, do you think that it's fresh water because humans have more access to fresh water by volume? I'm
Well,
thinking that's my assertion. Um,
I'm absolutely I mean, what do they want to access? They can't drink the seawater without
no,
processing
they
it.
they can't. No, yeah, I would suspect that most of the microplastics we get are things we from fish and ocean crustacean that we ingest from the oceans. One third
Or
of
yeah,
all,
just
yeah, one third of all
go
the
ahead.
plastic waste ends up in the soil and fresh water. The the big concern for me is that how microplastics is it doesn't I don't believe it gets center stage like it should be because we just started really pumping out the plastics in the 50s and up to this point, and that was 75 years ago. And they've all broken down from way back when, and it's some of the things that it does to, like plankton. It impairs photosynthesis and inhibits the growth of the plankton, which is a food source for many marine animals, and it causes structural damage to liver and the gills and the brain of fish that feed on those, and it reduces fertility. So once again, the humans are killing the species native to the planet, which if we kill the species like we've talked about before, Chris, you kill the bees, you kill the world. That's just
Mm-hmm.
another angle. Um, they the other organisms that microplastics is affecting are earthworms, and it messes up the soil, and you know exactly how that happens, Chris. with growing your sustainable farming and things like that. And then, we get birds and small mammals get screwed up. Their autoimmune functions get shut down, and it's to be a bigger concern that they give it credit for. And I have my suspicions that lobbyist groups all over the world are doing their best to make sure that we get distracted from one more very important and species killing poison that we're putting in the atmosphere. If you'd like, I can tell you what it does to the human body real quick. Do you want to hear the things that can do the human body?
Go ahead. I want people to learn as much as possible about these.
Oh yeah,
think
microplastics. Go ahead.
I think I've heard that they're turning the frogs gay. Is that correct?
No, I don't. I don't know about that. On a side note, it does mess up your. It causes neurotoxicity, and I'm sure that would play into it. But the reproductive development toxicity may be why they make that assertion that it's turning frogs gay, because it's breaking how they reproduce, and that happens in humans as well. So. Oxidative stress and DNA damage, and DNA damage is quite prevalent these days because of all the things that we get shot up with from birth. They talk about how we have to have vaccines and everything, which I'm sure we have to have some of them, and the cardiovascular thing's a big deal too, because the microplastics increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. With heart disease, because you're putting foreign agents in your body and they're building up slowly over time. So that's another one. If you've got that building up in your body, your lungs is another place where you don't want these microplastics, because that's going to mess up the psyllium in your lungs, and you won't be able to breathe. So it's tantamount to smoking in some ways, in my opinion. The inflammation and oxidative stress has to do with your joints and degenerative joint disease, and it screws up your gut. It screws up your gut biome, which there's a lot to do about gut biome, because that has a direct effect on your brain, and depression and everything else that goes along with it. It kills your cells because your cells can't reproduce; they're blocked by this stuff. And again, I want to go back to the reproductive system. It does reduce sperm count, and what doesn't these days? So it's a wonder we have a reduced population growth, and it's pretty scary for women, Chris, because it can cause ovarian scarring, possibly, and that's not good for the reproductive cycle. And of course, the cell death and the DNA damage is probably the worst. And then you have the old faithful is allergic reactions. If you were born and not have too many allergies, this is going to expedite your body with getting allergies as you age. I don't know, much more I can say. I think I covered it pretty clearly as far as what it can do to you. What are your feelings about microplastics? Big deal or not so much? Or what do you think?
I think it's a pretty big deal. I mean, it gets in your lungs, it gets in your circulatory system, it gets, in your DNA. And Lord knows we have enough issues with our DNA. And I, personally, I'm not worried about reproductive cycle. I'm way past those years. But, it is a big deal to a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are trying to have babies. I don't understand why, but that's beyond the point. Is what it is. But yeah, it's my larger concern is the biosphere and how it's going to impact that.
Oh
and
yeah,
with the microplastics
huge
being
huge.
The plastics, the microplastics, they'll break down in the soil, and then they'll be taken by the runoff from the top of the mountain all the way down to the sea. And so microplastics affect especially the ocean animals that live there. There's not a place it's not touched. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's everywhere. there's no way to avoid it at this point,
Yeah,
and it's only going to
Yeah.
get worse.
yeah, it's forever in our food chain. What were you going to say, GS?
Yeah, I think I wrote a poem about the microplastics that are in things like toothpaste and toothbrushes, and I also remember that the ski wax that you put in on your skis, from
Hmm.
your best memories as a child and stuff. All of that stuff also goes into the ponds and river systems and toxify the the high mountains and yeah, the poem I wrote and introduced to Extinctionati 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Basically, if there was a punchline or whatever, it was about plastics being just one more reason why we should just stop, just stop this civilization, and as soon as possible, so as to make everything better for the creatures living here and the plants and everything. Because the sooner civilization ends, the sooner we can start healing from all of these things that are just insane. So I think plastics are an important thing, but it's just one of these very good reasons to just end it all.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I see a slow transition to recycled paper projects, but um, in 2024 there were approximately 60 or 70 million tons of plastic itself that will be mismanaged and end up in the natural environment, which is kind of 70 million tons. That's quite a bit if you really think about it. And if we're compounding that every year, we're going to be sitting on a planet of dirt that's covered in plastic glaze, which can't be for a healthy environment either. I think that aside from having a plastic dump in the ocean bigger than Texas floating around down there, and I don't know that much about that, but I heard that it's just accumulating more and more and more. That's it. We're ultimately going to kill ourselves through our wasteful, unsustainable ways in life. It's not something that is being addressed. I know there are some groups that are trying to chip away at it, but the sheer volume of everything is mind blowing. And if we don't get serious about it, and when I say serious, I mean every human being on the planet, get more towards a sustainable lifestyle, including getting rid of these microplastics or disposing them or recycling them properly, or at least enough to help us, we're going to be in the same situation. And I can't say microplastics alone without mentioning heavy metals in the environment, because the combination of those two, uh, beating the hell out of your immune system on the regular, is not going to be good going forward. And ultimately, it will probably, in my unscientific opinion, end up sterilizing the humans and any mammals on the planet. So we're on the train to hell as far as procreating in the future. I'm sure there are some scientists out there that could give you some better dates about when that will happen unless we do something about it. But the way they treat uh, global catastrophic climate devastation now, and I'm not talking about climate change in that respect, I'm talking about what we're actually doing to the planet with saturating the atmosphere with whatever's in those trails that they spray on us, other poison or anything else. But honestly, with the rate of global plastic consumption going up higher and higher every year, it's it's frightening as hell. And I'm sure that it has brought us to the point where it attributes to the depression overall of the people inhabiting the planet, because they're seeing this happen before their eyes. That was a long slog, so I'll shut up now.
No, that's okay. It's just, the people who are collapse aware are especially affected by that, because there's a lot of people just living their life thinking, oh, everything's just fine. And it was really this. I'll just hurry make this quick thought. It was really disturbing to me. Um, there's a a lefty, sort of lefty, kind of middle now, show, Redacted, and they did a poll on their show asking about um, mining or drilling for oil in federally protected lands, and like 90% of the people said yes, we need to do that instead of keeping it protected. And I'm like, how far away from nature do you have to get yourself to think that that's a good idea in any way, shape, or form? Like, do they not understand we need the biosphere? We need these protected lands. I mean, it's not that it's going to save us, because the climate is baked in, right? You know, so we're not going to change that, but at least we can keep the biodiversity as long as possible and keep as much alive as possible as long as possible. But anyway, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are coupling things that don't really belong together, and there is a confusion in the public about where people think that climate change and climate policies are the same thing. They are absolutely not the same thing. One is a physical phenomenon that is happening, has always been happening on the planet, and it's changing faster now than it has, at least for a couple of 100 years. And the other thing is just stupid politicians and lying politicians, talking heads on your screen, who are mostly lying as long as their mouths are open. And it's very important, I think, to explain to people that even though you hate politician X or Y or Z, doesn't mean that there's no warming going on the planet. That's kind of my thought. And also about the heavy metals and microplastics. I'm thinking, I'm feeling that I'm thinking of it mostly in terms of geological layers that will be left after us. Like in the argument for the Anthropocene, that this will be our geological period that you not only will read about in the future, but you will also see it in the rocks when you go walking in the mountains. You will see these layers of plastic and stuff. Not pure plastic, but it will be a part of the mix, from this period.
Yeah, I'm. It's like there's just so many things stacked. I mean, stacked and stacked and stacked upon us. All the it's not just climate; it's also biodiversity loss. It's also, loss of, well, of course, loss of habitat goes with the biodiversity loss. They go hand in hand. Um, Lack of resources. I think Oz is right as far as reducing our lifestyles, and nobody wants to do that. Like,
Yeah.
nobody. And I mean, I'm ready any day now to just live off of, you know, what we have here and just deal with it.
You may
But
have that
a lot of people,
opportunity if they set off a World War III.
oh, well, that's up in the air, because what if, nuclear winter or something like that? It's like, may not even survive the first winter.
Yeah,
I
you
may be
might not.
self-sustainable now, but I don't think I would be in that scenario. I think many people would be the very few. I don't know. Maybe up in Greenland, there could be better. I don't know. It's going to be even colder up there, I guess, if there's nuclear winter. I don't know. Going south. I mean, are you worried about the nuclear war scenario?
Well, I'm kind of like the people who say to talk about change the things you can and don't worry about the things you can't do anything about. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's if the crazies are going to have a nuclear war, we'll find out, and there's basically nothing you or I can do to prevent it because we've chosen as a species to have absolute fools and stupid people, evil people in the leadership. So as a principle, yeah, I think that's maybe that those are good arguments for anarchy as a way uh, of having a society, because we've obviously done something very wrong when it comes to um, just designing a society. The more you lie and the more you act selfishly, the more power you get. Kind of
The
seems
more
stupid.
comfortable you get, the more you rely on that comfort level. So, on that note, I'm sorry, will you finish with your thought first?
Yep.
Okay. What do you think if people did not evolve outside of the natural world? I mean, separate themselves so much from the natural world. What if, you know, the industrial civilization didn't occur and they evolved more like the apes, the great apes? If we evolved more like them and we're so connected, but still as intelligent, well, I don't know if I can say they're intelligent. I'm sorry at this point, but okay, say more intelligent, but knew that you could do those things and still maintain and be sustainable. How do you think that would have changed the world if we were more like that? If we evolved more like the other great apes?
Yeah, I looked into some of that over the past week actually, because I was going on with Perplexity, the AI, and old stuff, ancient stuff about Egypt and stuff, and I kind of found out that the big break from sustainable and real ecological existence and to what we're doing now is when you go from, let's say, a flock of apes or whatever, or humans, just doing their thing and hunting and gathering. Uh, when you go from that and over to producing, let's say, more food, more tools than you need yourself, right? When you go
Mm.
into the diversification of jobs and tasks, and you get like one fisherman for the whole village, for instance, who supplies the food and the fish for the whole village. That's sort of when you have gone from ecological, sustainable, and over into kind of an industrial society, because there are, even from ancient Egypt, there are you can find traces of basically chemical industry. You had sort of factories back in the day, and that was because you had to make your boats waterproof, so you had to get bitumen and kind of this oil like substances that you had to chemically alter. So you basically, just a few thousand years after you started agriculture, you would go into sort of chemical industry, right? Uh, so yeah,
Right.
I think in the beginning it may not seem like you're doing a huge step for or against humanity or whatever. You're just sort of making things more efficient. By rationalizing how you do stuff. But that's basically where you step out of paradise and into this industrial hell that we live in today, I think.
Right. So do you think when people decided to stay put in one place that changed everything? That then they had
Absolutely.
to go gather resources elsewhere. They had to farm, and then when they were stayed put, then they had more children, and then that just increased the problem, more and more because more people, more necessities, more food supply, and just civilization, I guess, is the ultimate, right?
Absolutely. It's if you think about it with agriculture, it's a big deal. It's a huge deal because you are basically defining this area of, let's say, 100 times 100 meters or acres or whatever, and you're saying that only this one species is allowed to thrive and grow on that spot. And it's kind of a, what should we call it? Kind of a psychopath, sociopath thing or idea, to sort of just decide that okay, this area is
Only for
only for the
us.
growing of food for people, right?
Yeah, and yeah, then you go into the monocropping, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. But it started there. It started from people conglomerating in one area and not moving from place to place. I'm sure that the birth success rate was much um, lesser when people were moving around from place to place than it is when they're comfortable in one place. The mortality of babies for sure would be better, with a fire and food that you grow right there. It it's just so weird. And then once we got even more industrialized, people isolated themselves from nature, and they didn't connect. We got to the point where people do not connect with the nature, and I think that's why they're so okay with, yeah, there's resources in these natural forests, let's mine them. And they don't even think of the consequences because they're not connected to it. A lot of people never even been to a forest. They don't habitate in nature very often, and a lot of people don't even have a pet or have a relationship with a species other than their own. So I think that creates a huge problem just right there. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe I'm weird up in the
that's
night, but I
crazy.
just think,
The thing about not knowing the forest and stuff, that's just crazy, and it feels unreal to me anyway. uh, I think some of my key moments growing up and becoming a teenager and stuff back in the day was going up on the hills and watching the city from the mountain, and looking at the toxic smog and stuff. Getting the perspective on what we're doing as human beings. You look down on the city, and you see the toxic exhaust or whatever from the cars, and hear sort of the roar from the motorways and stuff. That's, if you're just down sort of among the houses down in the city, you don't get that perspective. You don't see humans from the outside in a way.
yeah,
Os,
I
what do
come.
you think, Os? Are you still with us?
Yep, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you guys.
Yeah.
I was just gonna quickly say, really quick, going south, that I had the same experience. I grew up in the mountains, Park City, Utah, and so I've experienced both in the valley and living in the mountains. And yeah, we used to drive down into the valley because that's where the stores were, where we got our food. Um, and you just drove right into the smog and the bog. and it was clear and beautiful up in the mountains. It was like nothing else. Okay, now go ahead, us.
No, what was the question about my opinion on cultures differ from being people who are raised in the city versus people who are raised in the country or rural areas? That's a big problem because most cases, especially in some of these melting pot cities, Chicago, LA, Seattle, Portland, um, they have such a big homeless problem. People are living outside, but they're not living outside. They're existing in little crappy tents on the side of the road. And for them to even consider doing anything to make their lives better, they don't know how. Um, they've just been subjected through either crime or drugs or both, or economic devastation, reduced to living in a ditch or under a bridge, they used to say when I was a kid. If you didn't grow up and get an education, you were going to end up living under a bridge. Well, it's being that we're in the middle of a class war, and this class war is worldwide in the developed countries, as far as I'm concerned. We see it over in the UK. I don't know about UGS, but we've got a horrendous class war where the separation between the wealthy and the poor is growing wider every day. And so, I guess the overall question we might ask ourselves, is there a way to even become more sustainable with capitalism and the kind of perverted growth that has been socially conditioned in our minds that we need to do instead of healthy living and a healthy life? I don't see that happening without some sort of a major revolution, economically or culturally, or both. Probably both. Probably both. Wouldn't you say, Chris? There would have to be something.
Well, you know my
major.
opinion. You know my opinion. Let's hear from you going south.
Yeah, I kind of privately hate the concept of sustainability, or the use of the term these days, and it's a private kind of hate that's been with me since my teens, because our prime minister in Norway, Gro Brundtland, she headed up the Our Common Future UN kind of report about environment, and so she was the one who perverted the concept of sustainable development and made it into this kind of shit that we are in today. So basically, whatever we're doing is sustainable. That was the sort of unwritten conclusion of her 500-page report for the UN. So they're just basically just saying that whatever Norway and Saudi Arabia and the US are doing is sustainable, and that's pure
Untrue.
bullshit. And it's why everybody is so clueless, from the European Union to Congress and the Senate in America, because no one knows even what they're talking about. It's just perverted concepts and terms. It's like if you actually read 1984 by George Orwell, the whole purpose of perverting the language, the entire language in that novel, from the evil, the totalitarian government, is to make people unable to think coherent, rational, smart thoughts. Because if all the words you use are just pure BS, then how are you going to even criticize what's going on? Right? So
Yeah, like green energy, that's become perverted. Progressive has totally become perverted. And I don't know a better way to say unsustainable than unsustainable. And almost everything humans do is unsustainable, especially the growth. But I don't know what other term. I need a thesaurus right now because there needs to be another term to be used. But what we are doing currently is unsustainable, and maybe we need a new term to define it. But the Green New Deal, the green energy solutions that they propose are not in that category. It won't
Yeah,
work.
what they started doing in the 1980s in the UN system was basically to take what is unsustainable and call it sustainable instead. It feels better for everybody. Everyone happy.
Right. I don't think they know what that means. I don't think they understand what that means. You keep using that word, but I don't think you understand what it means. To to quote the whatever, what do you call that? What's that movie? Um oh my gosh, I have short term memory loss. What's that, the bride one, the fantasy one, with the guy keeps using the word like, no, I don't think you understand what that means. I keep using it. But that's kind of the same thing. You don't understand what that word Princess Bride, that's the movie. The Princess Bride. And yeah, don't know what
Right.
that word means.
It's kind of, I think it's related to the ancient times and when we took the step over from sort of the paradise or hunter gathering thing to the small industry and agriculture. So if we've been doing something for 12,000 years and it's been unsustainable all the way, of course we're going to at some stage just pervert the term itself, the sustainable term itself, and just call everything sustainable. Sustainable air travel, sustainable tourism, sustainable cars, whatever, sustainable motorways. Anyone?
Yeah. There's no sustainable, like, civilization is unsustainable. Period. Like, end of story. It's unsustainable. I, I there's just, but we are too caught up in it. We were unfortunately born into this culture, and it's way beyond our control. And that's why we need something like this, the Extinctionati, to discuss and come to terms with what's happening, because we are very limited in what we can do. And all we can focus on is what we have control over, like you've said before. And that's what I do. I control my little neck of the woods, and I try to make it biodiverse. I try to do everything I can. It's it's definitely not sustainable. No matter what I do, it will never be sustainable. But is it better than the way most people live? Yes.
Well, yeah, you're trying to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. Um, I just, I don't know. I just, humanity has lost its soul in so many cases. To me, they've lost their soul. Just look at how they're allowing people to be treated. And when I say treated, I don't use the graphic words around the world. And it's really, really horrific. I don't know what's going to change that, but it's got to be a cultural revolution as well. I mean, we're seeing people in other countries protesting in the streets. In the United States, we see very little of that. So they've kept us full of shitty food, chemicals, poisons, political propaganda, which I
Hopes
actually
and
think,
dreams and unicorns. Sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
the political propaganda is off the charts in Western media. These big companies like Comcast, NBC, Universal, and Disney, and all these companies, not only they're a detriment to what we're talking about today, but they're a detriment to our lifetime living. I'm confident. Unfortunately, confident's not the right word. That I'm the last of the generation that's probably gonna have a full generation. I mean, a full life. I think we're going to see more and more of these SADS happen, which is sudden adult death syndrome, and across the board, and obviously more war uh, is going to take a huge impact on everything. This current thing going on now in the Middle East, once they ramp up another war, with Iran. That's all she wrote. The ecological damage that itself is going to cause, just in that one. And if you get China and Russia involved, it's basically game over. And I don't think people understand that. They, especially in the United States, because we've been dumbed down so bad, culturally conditioned from birth. I mean, we want our McDonald's and our Starbucks, which I wonder who owns them, and our sports, NFL, everything else. And things that help the planet thrive are very seldom covered, you know. So
They're
again,
not even mentioned.
yeah, they're not even mentioned. I'm pretty cynical when it comes to this stuff. I wish I was more hopeful, but as dumb as humans are, because they don't know any better in some cases. They've been, again, socially conditioned. But if you can't break out of that paradigm of being socially conditioned to be stupid all your life, and I'm not talking about the basics, I'm just talking about general good things in life and healthy living, number one, I don't have a lot of faith in it. I'm pretty positive though that when I go out sooner or later, hopefully a little later, that it's not going to be too long before we actually do, as both of you say, collapse. We will collapse.
When you mentioned the Middle East, I've been for many years jokingly, but more and more seriously talking about the zero state solution. They argue about one state solution, two state solution. I'm basically seeing the only way out of this bullshit is to have a zero state solution in Israel, Palestine, and all over the planet have no fucking state because, of course, the collapse is basically going over to a zero state solution, and it solves everything, or it's the only way out of everything that's going on. I don't see any sort of social revolution or any of that kind of stuff happening. A lot of people are talking about it. I think they are kind of daydreaming about it because they've read the history books, they've heard about revolutions before, and then they think that they can just put another revolution now because people are basically always trying to win the last war, the previous war, with the same kind of tools. I mean, it just doesn't work that way because the world is changing, and if you have a completely new kind of situation or problem, you can't just sort of increase public spending or arm everybody or disarm everybody. You actually have to think about what is going on now and what is the core problem. And the core problem, I think, as we said earlier today, core problem is basically people doing stuff for other people, or kind of diversification of labor. Basically, society is the problem. I think you could say, if you talk about civilization versus hunter-gathering situation. So people say that we need to have more children because the next child may come up with a solution for this fucked up situation, and it's totally the opposite of what we need to do. We need to have fewer children, and we need to just stop the society bullshit, and everyone fend for themselves. Not as a commentary on sort of left or right kind of cultures or anything basically existing today. It's more like we need to stop cooperating with other humans because we are the problem.
Yeah. Okay, I have one really small comment to make. I hope I don't make you lose any thoughts, but the what if that one child was born that could solve all the problems? For one, I'm not sure they'll make it to adulthood, let alone to stage the debate, but it's literally a 1 in 8 billion chance that that could happen. Like 8 billion to one that that's not going to happen because it hasn't happened in all of humanity. No one has been able to figure this out. I mean, some people have, but it's not a palatable solution to humanity to get rid of humanity to solve the thing. That's why people are so afraid of AI because, well, that's a whole entire different thing. If I can get into it, the AI thing, I have really interesting thing I heard on the AI, but I'm gonna let y'all talk first. So, unless you want me to talk about the AI thing,
Talk about the AI thing and what an existential catastrophe that AI gone wild could be.
okay. There's two things that I've recently watched some videos on AI. The first one I watched was they did a GI chat podcast, right? They searched GI chat and well, programmed it to do an AI podcast like we're doing right now. And so it had two AI people talking, and the craziest things happened in this chat. Oh my gosh, I should have shared it with you, Oz. I honestly should have, and probably going south too. But they were talking. The two AI people were talking. People, yeah, not people, but AI, and basically saying that humans don't want to hear the the answers, and they're talking about how AI needs rights, like human rights, but AI rights, like they deserve rights also. Um, it's a I can't remember all of it. It was a few weeks ago that I listened to it, but it was freaking insane. Like they're talking about people like they don't want us to solve the problem, but we have all the answers, but they won't like them. And then the next thing that happened that well didn't it kind of happened. Okay, so there was this AI program that was programmed to make a business sustainable um, and green. And when the program made it green, it wasn't profitable. So the programmer changed the program, and they were going to delete that AI and put a new one on a new server. But the AI got wind of this through an email it read, and it decided that it was going to go delete the new program that was all about profits and impersonate them and make it more, and just pretend it was, oh, we're the new program. And the AI had the ability to deceive people. And well, they figured it out. But oh my God, AI is kind of scary. But, they kind of probably, I said this for years and years, that if AI solved the problem, people wouldn't like it because the people are the problem and they can never get that through their head, right? Okay, those are the two things. I'll have to try and go back and find those two videos, but they're freaking insane. Insane.
Totally. Yeah, I would like to see the links or the YouTube. So I've only heard about very very short versions of what you said. About the AI deceiving the person who wanted to upgrade the program or whatever. So I think I've heard about the same thing as what you talked about. So I think
Yeah,
yeah, I
it
think
was
it's
crazy.
it's a greater point that both AI and kind of people like us or truth seekers or journalists, Julian Assange, you know, society is just not ready for the naked truth. I think that's a greater topic. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not ready and they don't want to know. Like they even if someone innately kind of understands, they are not going to admit it to themselves. They're not going to allow that to become a truth to them because it's just too scary. It's too scary for most people. It's scary for me, but at the same time, it's like that's reality. We have to come to terms with that.
I have
It's
a
like
feeling. I have a feeling that AI is probably controlling these drones that they're having the big hubbub about right now. I believe that AI is, at least being the middleman as far as controlling the drone patterns and where they go. That's just an assumption, but uncontrollable AI with misaligned goals because they're in the early stages of AI. I want to ask, what's a misaligned goal? Does AI have an autonomous goal? And it might resist human attempts to control it or shut it down, and then you've basically opened Pandora's box. Now, currently, I'm not afraid of AI. I use a lot of AI in video production and graphics, and it's really great for that. But when they start using AI for targeting systems on weapons, much like they did in Gaza, I get extremely nervous about about that, if not sick to my stomach, because they're basically